Good evening and welcome. Thank you for attending the regular council meeting of Monday, July 4th, 2022, in person and online. The room is getting fuller. This is encouraging, and I would think this is going to be our longest daytime meeting of the year, considering that it's July shortly after the solstice. Thank you. So in most recent activities, Canada Day festivities this weekend were a great success. They were well attended in the streets, on terraces, and at Jack Layton Park. There has been request from the merchants community that we do a post-mortem and look on how to continue to do better. So with regards to the progress report, which I will basically start titling the mayor's report for the month, here's my progress report on the RCI number 1, so on environmental protections. Paris Plus continues to make progress in transcribing the orientations and strategies of the planning program into a framework that will be applied to our urban planning tools. Also, last month, we had a remarkable trees seminar with Suzanne Hardy, an expert in remarkable trees. That was organized by Mark Gray. These took place over 2 days on June 3rd and 4th. And this hopefully will turn into having the inventory of remarkable trees updated by the end of the summer that we will be able to integrate into our bylaws. With regard to the third item on this RCI number 1 process in progress, you will find this evening that I have asked Habitat, formerly known as Echo to Herb, to submit a service proposal for the next step of their work, where they will create a tool to quantify the eco-fiscality or loss of environmental value generated by development. This tool for full cost of development will have to be paired with another tool to quantify infrastructure costs at the onset and through the years of operation and other development generated costs. There are provisions in the law where such costs can be charged back to the developer for greater weight and irrefutability. It is best if these are based on scientific process such as Habitat's. In my view, this tool is essential in defining what should happen with the natural areas under present pressure of development. On the hand, this tool and assessment will take 9 months to produce, therefore requiring that we extend the RCI freeze period to approximately April 2023. It is expected that the CMM's RCI on natural areas will last until the PMAD, so the Plan Métropolitain d'Aménagement et de Développement, is revised and the conformity has been completed by individual municipalities. So in effect, Hudson will be lifting our RCI and environment before the CMM's own RCI is lifted. So some metropolitan restrictions may remain in place after April 2023. With regards to the second RCI that is in the works or in planning stages, the one on heritage and look and feel. So this is the interim controls that would protect heritage and the look and feel of the town, where a freeze on subdivision construction renovation would be applied to areas covered by the SPAPE. So this is a site planning on architecture and integration program and other areas of heritage value. I met last week with Luc Nopen and his student Etienne Boulanger, who have been working for years on the inventory and characterization of Hudson's built heritage. The research and available data is extensive and very detailed. Etienne has been conducting extensive research on land transfers and history of properties since the start of residential development through successive developments of a handful of lots at a time by contractors, builders, and families who had vision and properties large enough to develop. I have asked Mr. Nopen to prepare a sequence of talks and seminars to share some of the findings collected and continue the exchange and reflection on the value of the data collected on today's efforts to foster look and feel in Hudson. Also, Philip Toon and I met with EXO in June to continue our exchanges on the feasibility of converting the train line into an active corridor while adding better and direct bus service to the Vaudreuil train station and eventually to the REM. The exchanges are positive and continue to generate forward momentum. EXO will be launching a second public consultation phase this fall. It is possible that EXO will include some questions with regards to the Hudson line. With regards to Pine Lake, an ad hoc committee was created by myself with mandate or with intentions of bringing recommendations to council. From the information and informal consultation period that followed the public presentation held on April 28th of this year and written comment period that was held from May 3rd to May 20th of this year, these generated some 426 written comments from the public. The comments and opinions received, while acknowledging the insufficient data sent out to fully compare one option to the other, showed that the people who participated were mostly split between putting back the lake at best cost or let nature reclaim her place while making the natural area aesthetic and accessible to the public. Only a few wanted to proceed with the big dam without moving parts, as this was presumed to be the option with the least waste of time and resources, where council's efforts could then be spent on other pressing matters such as road repair. My intent in launching the call for public comments was threefold. One, get a sense of level of public interest in proceeding with the project as is. Two, get a sense of public support to opening Pandora's box, meaning a redesign of the present dam proposal or removing the dam, doing the least necessary, which would result in adding a delay and perhaps increasing or even perhaps lowering cost. And three, to seek out local experts. The urgency of the project is definitely certain, as is a desire from the general public that costs should be managed, and that if there are savings to be made, that these should be reallocated to more essential road repairs. Please note that some stopgap measures will be applied in weeks ahead to palliate the erosion presently taking place on the south side of the dam. It is expected that larger crushed stone will be brought to stabilize and reinforce the embankment, as was done a few years ago on the north side. Following are some discussions that were had during the June ad hoc meetings with local experts. These are not the only discussions had, but give a general portrait of the quality of the exchanges. There is public perception that the no dam option will cost less and possibly take less time. Do nothing or just remove the dam, whether this causes or not erosion and culvert problems downstream, and let the area return to natural conditions without landscape management is not a publicly or environmentally acceptable options due to the presence of invasive species and for aesthetic reasons due to the proximity to a main access into town. The primary goal of the present dam proposal seems to be designed to handle a 100-year flood in that it will survive it rather than fail. The reservoir capacity seems to be a size that will attenuate normal flood peaks, but not be capable of taking much off the peak of a 100-year flood. So here is comments with regards or findings with regards to results from the consultation period. The spoken comments from the public meeting in April, the written comments received in May, and the two ad hoc meetings in June confirm that there is interest from council and the community to revise the design orientations of the present dam proposal. From this process came forward, one, a valuable group of local expertise with pertinent comments and expertise to add value input during the reflection period. Two, a sufficient indication that many people would like the area to be more aesthetically pleasing. And three, there continues to be interest in bringing back multi-seasonal amenity and recreation for public use. So the next steps that I have proposed to council in redefining the design orientations are that those present in these two ad hoc meetings with local expert would work through a problem-solving and decision-making tool where the analysis is disconnected from the decision, a rigorous system step-by-step approach looking to build best consensus on a chosen solution, or in this case, design orientations and criteria for council to hand over to the organization for redesign of the present dam project. This process was found particularly helpful in the second meeting in showing us how to triage the issues while assessing impact and importance, social, environmental, and cost. This process is estimated to be at 60% complete, and it was recommended that this process be completed with the input of others to generate a strongly founded decisional consensus. It was proposed to Council that the services of Pierre Labbé, the engineer at EXP, would be retained through a bank of hours to assist the group in completing this process within 4 weeks, looking to bring a decision to the August Council meeting. Now, with regards to commitment to St. Lazare, in restoring the required fish habitat for St. Lazare's obligation to the Department of Fisheries and Ocean, in compensation from loss of habitat that resulted from the Chalene Valley Stabilization Project, this orientation continues to be very much part of the project scope that is being redefined. I will send a formal letter to St. Lazare proposing a request for an extension of 24 months from the Department of Fisheries and Oceans with support from Hudson. And finally, I would like to extend a special thank you to local experts who came forward and assisted in sorting through the different issues related to the present dam design. So Mr. Holder, who is a retired dam engineer and resident of Hudson, Travis Bowser, a dam engineer, Dr. Elena Bennett, environmental science and ecologist, Dr. Bernard Lenner, geographer and hydrologist, and Jim McDermott, a mechanical engineer with project manager's experience, and Pierre Labbé of EXP, and Ian Dalgarno, director of public works, and of course, the councillors. So that was for that part of it. In June, also on Tuesday, 21st, there was a public presentation on the bylaw 753-2022 to support the sewage connection assistance program. Only 10 owners, unfortunately, have signed up to date out of 118 eligible properties, out of a potential, well, the total amounts of properties that have self-standing or auto-standing sewage systems are 1,863. So you can see that it's a small portion of the different systems that we have in town, but it would be lovely to encourage more people who are eligible for this project to come on board. I know that there was a second mail out that was put out, and at this point that only represents 8.5% of the eligible properties. So hopefully we'll see more, and we'll be extending then this period of receiving interested parties until, I would think, September should be about right. So it requires 3 months to put that process into play, correct? Makes sense. So please pass the word along, inform your neighbors, and hopefully we'll gain more interest on this. With regards to July, Greenwood is for cultural events. Greenwood is holding events. Maybe that Reed was going to cover the events. No, okay, sorry. So lack of coordination on my part. So cultural events, Greenwood is holding events each week on Thursdays and Sundays. Please look on their website and on ours for the list of the different outings and invitations. The Hudson Players Club that Reed will be introducing at the time of the recreation and cultural segment of the evening. They will be holding again their Shakespeare by the Lake event on 2 weekends. Hudson Village Theatre will be showing a musical that will be, I guess, explained this evening, as we have with us the representative of the Hudson Village Theatre, who will be giving a brief introduction following my very long-winded intro this evening. And also Hudson Music Festival will be taking place from July 28th to August 7th with stages in different locations in town. So again, for a full list of summer events, you can find these on our town's website. With regards to news from the town's organization, tomorrow will be a special collection for cardboard following Moving Day. This is an initiative that was put forward by the MRC in anticipation of moving days. So the same day, it's taking place the same day as the collection of recyclable materials and does not require a second pass-through. It's just in provision of larger volumes of cardboard. So again, details are given on the town's website. I believe you just need to stack them and put them next to your box. With regards to McNaughton's Bridge, so this is the bridge at the end of Lower McNaughton that connects to Upper McNaughton. The bridge was washed away and lifted off or tilted off of its footings during a high water incident this spring. The bridge has been inspected by a licensed professional, and unfortunately it must be replaced and the footings rebuilt to present technical standards. The bridge will be closed and removed, until it is replaced with a new structure that has been designed and certified by a licensed professional, and where the installation has been permitted by the MRC and the Ministry of Environment. This replacement project could take a year or longer, particularly since the public engineers who review applications for authorization continue to be on strike. Also, as a reminder, remind you that parking permits are required. More information again is on the town's website. And finally, I believe in my opening, I just want to make sure, pretty close. I continue to hold these ad hoc meetings monthly. In June, there was one on finance. As some of you may remember, Steve Farrell had come to the microphone and asked a long list of questions with regards to the mayor's presentation of the audited financial statements. And it was a very healthy exchange, and I look forward to continuing these exchanges with Mr. Farrell. Also in June, as you heard, there was this Pine Lake Ad Hoc Committee with local experts where we met twice. We met on Monday, June 20th and on Friday, June 24th. And I will be continuing these during the month of July. This month on Saturday, there will be the Heritage Look and Feel, the third monthly coffee with the mayor, if you'd like, again, to receive comments and input from the community with regards to people's expectations on look and feel and their notion of what is local heritage. Now, with regards to tonight's agenda, so we're getting to the end of this, I will be recusing myself from item 3.3 this evening, 514 Main. I was engaged by different owners of this site, the first time in February of 2013 and the last time on February of 2021, so well before this mandate. And it is just cleaner if anytime this project comes to even the discussional table, I basically recuse myself from it. And for this item, so Darren Legault will be presiding the meeting for the duration of this agenda item. With regards to evolving format of council meetings, as I'm looking to make them more informative and more dynamic, as item 1 on this, presentation by local organization, as I mentioned, this evening will be Hudson Village Theatre's Galina Skulska. Last month, we had the Hudson Heartbeat Farm that came with Adrian Burke. And so anyone who knows of an organization that is supported by the town and would like to be heard, please encourage them to come to the mic. This evening, it could have also, I know that the Players Club was interested in participating, so instead it will be Reed who reads out their statement. Unfortunately, they were busy this evening, so couldn't come. With regards to question periods, at the last meeting, while looking to bring better structure to the question periods, I gave the directive that 1, a person can only ask 1 question per question period. During the meeting, this was increased to include 1 follow-up question. My sense is that value was added by this measure where a person's questions were focused into 1 intervention rather than split over multiple interventions in the same question period. Number 2, I also gave the directive that the first question period should only apply to items on the agenda. I have reflected on the pushback received during the meeting and also as this meeting served as a perfect example where a person who never attends these meetings had come expressly to ask about a specific situation in his neighborhood and found that his question would have to wait to the end of the meeting, which in the case of last month would have brought him well past 10 p.m. So I apologize to this person and to others, and I will again receive all questions at both questions period, whether on the agenda or not, pertaining to an item on the agenda or not. And I remind people that since May, the meeting in May, written in questions will only be read and answered at the end of the last question period to give priority to the people who are in attendance. So now moving on to the content of tonight's meeting, and I'm sorry for long-windedness, but it was important that I brought you up to date on some key files. All right, so here we go. Are we doing 1.1? I forget the order of this. So adoption of the agenda goes first. So I will need a mover and a seconder for the adoption.
We start by naming me the secretary.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. So item 1.1, appointment of the secretary for the meeting. Mr. Toon has been appointed to act as secretary for this meeting, July 4th of 2022. I need a mover and a seconder. So Darren Legault proposes, seconded by Reed Thompson. Anyone not in support of this resolution, please raise your hand. It seems to be supported. Oh, allez-y.
Alors, on vient juste de me nommer secrétaire pour la présente séance.
Oui, merci. Donc, item 1.2, adoption of the agenda. So this is with regards to the agenda that you found at the entrance on coming in. I will, en français, j'imagine, on le fait en premier.
Alors, 1.2 à l'ordre du jour. Alors, c'est pour l'adoption de l'ordre du jour d'aujourd'hui.
Merci. I need a mover and a seconder for adopting the agenda. So Peter Mate and seconded by Darren Legault. If there are any objections to this resolution, please raise your hand. I see no hands raised. It is carried unanimously. So here we go, Kalina. Item 1.2, presentation by community organizations. Ms. Kalina Skolska presents the Hudson Village Theatre. En français? En français? Oui, non?
Oh, pardon, oui. Alors, 1.2 à l'ordre du jour.
We could. Thank you, Kalina. You
Un
have...
organisme communautaire va présenter aujourd'hui. Alors, c'est pour le Hudson Village Theatre et Kalina Skulska sera la présentatrice.
Merci. So I cede the microphone to you.
Thank you, Mayor Hutchison, councillors. Thank you very much for the opportunity for us to present our programming for this year from the professional side of the theatre, as opposed to the community, which we've been producing all year round. Normally, this would be done by Dean Patrick Fleming. However, unfortunately, he's quite ill. So I'm going to take the reins. I would like to start off actually by just perhaps reiterating to many people who don't know what exactly is the mission of the theatre. So Hudson Village Theatre mission is to sustain and grow a vibrant English language performing arts facility that serves the town of Hudson and the larger surrounding region. The theatre exists to produce and present high quality professional theatre, music, comedy, film, and opera productions for a diverse audience. It seeks out and provides opportunities for emerging theatre artists, as well as local performers, to encourage and cultivate their talents, and offers its vibrant venue to the community groups. The theatre strives to build and nurture an organizational culture that embraces a commitment to inclusiveness, accessibility, and diversity. Dean, these are in Dean's words, so I'm not introducing myself as Dean Patrick Fleming, but however, you will see a lot of eyes in here. So first of all, Dean did thank council for everything, for your time, and actually for all the contributions that the town has given to the theatre. To start, the theatre serves so many communities and stakeholders, and I work specifically with the professional theatre, getting to program the shows and produce them along with our small but amazing team. I've worked at the theatre many times through my career, my first time being when it was in a tent out by Mont Village, but in 2019, I took on the role that I'm in now. And in 2020, on the day of the world shutdown, actually, my wife and I moved to Hudson, which Dean did. That was exactly when he moved out to Hudson. And it was the best move we could have made. All this to say, I've watched the theatre grow, and we continue to grow and have some of the greatest artists I know come work with us. And whether they live in Hudson or come from Montreal or elsewhere in the country, they love coming to spend time here, as do our audience that comes from far and wide. A little known fact, we are the only producing English theatre off the island of Montreal in all of Quebec. I'm really excited about our season this year, which is what I'm here to talk about. As an organization, we're very aware of making sure we continue to diversify the stories we tell, who gets to tell them, and making sure more and more people are seeing a bit of themselves up on our stage. That's been a goal of mine throughout my career, and this year is certainly no exception. Hey Viola, our first show of the summer season is a touring show from British Columbia, and we're the only Quebec stop on a national tour that brings them coast to coast. Viola Desmond was an amazing historical figure. If you don't know her, she's on our $10 bill. She was an incredible businesswoman and she was an important civil rights activist. She is a Canadian icon who, like many great Canadians, we don't know much about. She also lived in a moment in time where incredible music was made. This production uses that music in such an imaginative way to shine a light on Viola Desmond's life. I've known Tracy Power, one of the creators of this show, for a long time and collaborated with her before. And she always knows how to create theater that is accessible and embraces the audience. Cristo Dos Santos is the other creator and the star of the show. She plays viola and she sings, and man, can she sing. I could listen to her voice for hours. The show is set in a cabaret style, which lends itself beautifully to our intimate space. And the musicians coming have played all over the world, for and with some of the biggest names out there. They're amazing. This show is only here for a week from July 20th and 24th. There's matinee and evening shows, and I hope you can make it to listen to incredible music and maybe gain a bit more appreciation for such an important woman. The centerpiece of the season is a play called Feather Gardens. In 2020, I spoke with Jimmy Blay, who is an actor, a writer, and a director, about the idea of writing a play specifically for Hudson Village Theatre and about Hudson and Kanesatake. It's only the second time in the theater's history that the theater has commissioned a play, which I will add was very strongly supported by Canada Council. I had heard bits of stories and that there was a relationship back in 1990, and maybe not just then. The two communities are right across the river from one another. They have so much in common, yet are so different. Apart from being really talented and knowing Hudson Village Theatre from having acted in a show here in 2018, Jimmy is Cree, and he's also one of the funniest people I know. So I asked him if he'd be interested in writing a comedy for us. You see, I believe quite strongly, that laughter is the great equalizer. It opens people up. If you can make an entire audience laugh together, they become one and they let their guard down a bit. And that allows us to make them feel something along with making them laugh. I spend a lot of time thinking about truth and reconciliation in storytelling. A lot of our truth is heavy and rooted in trauma. And I think the truth still needs to be shared. But I think suffering owns a little too much of our stories today, especially in theater. Indigenous people are wickedly funny. And our truth is also rooted in that humor. Feather Gardens is my way owning that, knowing that making people laugh will not stop us from having important conversations. In fact, it should help us. Laughter is medicine. We've been working with an advisor who is a community leader in Kanesatake. Jimmy and I, of course, want to make sure the script and the production are sensitive to anything specific to Kanesatake. And Al Harrington has been a great resource for us and a great partner. Last week, Jimmy and I got together with a couple of members of the community there, and we listened and heard some great stories. They're excited about the play. A short synopsis. There has been no evidence of a permanent settlement of Indigenous communities in Hudson until now. Local optometrist and hobby metal detectorist Oscar Manning has uncovered what he believes is a valuable piece of Indigenous history in his backyard. In an attempt to authenticate and appraise it, he approaches the neighboring community of Kanesatake for advice. The first people he meets on the reserve are Tommy Harris and Vern Running Feather at Smoke and Joe's Smoke Shop. Vern and Tommy come across the river to Oscar's backyard, where they decide the artifact may be an authentic traditional arrowhead, and Oscar's yard is declared Mohawk land. What starts off as a hilarious cohabitation between a couple of sympathetic yet opportunistic allies and a pair of strong-willed jokers quickly becomes a scenario where everyone is questioning their relationship, their values, and what belongs to who. We started rehearsals this morning, actually, with Hudsonite Bruce Dinsmore playing Oscar Manning and Jimmy himself playing Tommy Harris, Jeremy Prue, a very great actor from Toronto, and Montrealer Carly Lawrence will round out the cast. We have a great team made up of both Indigenous and non-Indigenous artists, and I honestly can't wait to share the show with you. I promise you, at the very least, a very good laugh, but hopefully a little bit more. We are also working hard to create an event or two outside of just the play. Theater at its best is a great discussion starter, so I'm hoping that the show will do just that and that we can offer up a forum for those discussions. If all goes well, somewhere around the opening, we will also hopefully have 2 rows of canoes crossing from Kanesatake, the 2 rows symbolizing the 2-row wampum, one of the oldest treaties in North America. The world premiere of Feather Gardens will open on August the 6th and run until the 20th, with 2 previews on August the 4th and the 5th. Finally, the last show of the season is Bloodshot by Douglas Post, October the 19th to the 17th. An amazing script, a genre play, a film noir, and a detective whodunit with incredible twists and turns. It screams for a design like nothing we've done before at HVT. The play was written for a tour de force performance, and we are bringing in Harry Stankowski to give it. Harry's many gifts and talents as a performer and musician will be called upon in this demanding piece as he plays multiple characters and takes us on a journey in this wonderful, twisting, dark mystery. I've never directed a play like Bloodshot before. I can't wait to start. And with Harry and the design team, dive into the film noir genre and take the audience on a ride. So that's it for the 2022 professional theater season at Hudson Village Theater. But I'd also like to mention that on July the 31st, we're going to be hosting Repercussion Shakespeare in the Park. It's not going to be in the park, it's going to be in our parking lot, which we're very excited about. And as always, there are other great events coming to the theater in the coming months. So we hope to see many of you at the theater.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Kalina. What an exciting season. All right, well, makes me want to go to the theater. But here we are, on to section 2, confirmation of minutes. 2.1, confirmation of the June 6, 2022 regular meeting minutes. Council has reviewed the minutes of June 6th, and that these are hereby approved and submitted. So in French, yeah.
Alors, au point 2.1 à l'ordre du jour, on demande au conseil d'approuver les procès-verbaux de l'Assemblée du 6 juin 2022.
Merci. Need a mover and a seconder. Darren Legault moving, seconded by Mark Gray. I keep wanting to call you Mark West. It's a real problem. I'm so sorry. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It's passed unanimously. Section 3, urban planning and environment. So I will, oh, see how I do that. Sorry. So first question period, we will be alternating between room and, are there any hands up virtually?
There are no hands up virtually at this time. If anybody has questions virtually, please click on the hand at the bottom of the screen. Pour ceux qui sont présents par la plateforme Zoom, s'il vous plaît, si vous avez des questions à poser, s'il vous plaît, cliquez sur la main que vous trouvez en bas d'écran. Et pour l'instant, on a 17 personnes sur l'Internet, puis une main.
Une main levée. So let's go ahead with the hand that is up virtually.
Okay, alors, la personne qui s'identifie comme admin, the person identifying themselves as admin, please go ahead.
Hang on, unmute. Sorry, Marcus Owen here, admin. I'm not quite sure it's admin. Can you hear me?
Marcus Owen?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Quick question. I have not read the minutes from the last meeting, and I'm not sure whether the comments from the mayor are included in the minutes. But I would ask that they be included because there was a lot said tonight, a lot of interesting stuff. I think it'd be very good if they're included in the minutes. That's a request. I don't know whether they have been in the past or not.
They haven't recently. They may have been in previous terms, but certainly not in ours. In this case, it'd be adding an extra 7 pages and has to be translated. So if we were going to do that, I'll look at it with Philip, but maybe I need to say less. There's less to translate. We'll look into it.
Okay, well, that's
Marcus.
your call. Thank you very much. Thank
Yeah,
you.
You're welcome. No, anyone else? Please come to the microphone.
Self-drinking tea last week. If I ask this in the
Your
spirit,
name was?
David Vance,
David Vance.
and I'm
Okay.
I'm Windcrest.
All right, great.
So my being the 4th of July and being from the States, you made a comment about restricted number of questions. So how many questions is?
So one question with a follow-up per question period. But I mean, as you see, it's not like we have a full, if you had two, I wouldn't have, it's when we have really, really long. Sometimes there's about 14 people in a row and then some will jump back on at the end of the period. So it's hard to close it. So it's just to try and put some order in that kind of situation.
Okay, well, because I want to save my question for Pine Lake, because I have some concerns.
Well, you could
on
ask it now and then you could ask a follow-up question following
Well,
this
I
one.
just wanted to comment on the theater, and don't take this wrong, but you mentioned Shakespeare in the Park, and you also mentioned something with the indigenous tribe across the river, and you told them.
Mr. Vance,
Yes,
can I
ma'am.
have you speak in the microphone
I'm
so that
sorry.
people online can also hear?
So you told them, you told the writer that he had to do a comedy, and I was thinking, oh, I guess that would be similar to somebody telling Shakespeare when he did King Lear that he has to do a comedy. My concern, you mentioned 1990. I don't know if you were aware of this.
So,
But
Mr.
according-
Vance, may I suggest that this is a comment that you have or a discussion that you have with Ms.
Well, it
Spilstra?
affects us, and I'll be done with this one comment very quickly, because I do want to get to Pine Lake. But in 1990, a 14-year-old girl from across the river was stabbed in the back with a spear or a bayonet from the Canadian Armed Forces. So if you're, my thought that for you to consider is allow them to write what they want to write and don't dictate them to write a comedy. Because I can't see anything funny about a Canadian soldier
Mr.
stabbing a
Vance,
14-year-old girl
Mr.
in the back.
Vance, this is probably
Okay, all
not
right,
the
I'll
place,
go.
but if you'd like to ask your question about Pine Lake, this is the place to ask
Okay,
your question.
You have a very interesting phrasing and style of how you structure.
I know, I'm francophone
and-
first. It's a little
Yeah, it
awkward.
reminds me doesn't remind me really of a Canadian or American structure. It reminds me of other countries that do this kind of thing. So I'll try to phrase it as quickly as possible. Pine Lake, I had sent you a note about things that could be done with Pine Lake that would cost a fraction of the cost. I didn't get a chance. I didn't get anybody feedback on that, so I don't know what's there.
So we
but-
received a lot of comments,
Okay,
right? I
well-
could not possibly answer each and every one of them.
Well, I think it's obvious. The roads in this town are atrocious.
Mhm.
You've already allocated X amount of money, and I'd like to know how much of that money on another question, that you've already allowed engineers to come in and do draft assessments on how much it would cost, making an assumption that people in the town wanted to go ahead with Pine Lake. Now, I loved Pine Lake at one time, but given the cost and some of the implications, I don't know if you knew that they used to dredge Pine Lake, and it would cost up to $500,000, $1 million to dredge Pine Lake every, I don't know the exact amount of years. But, you know, all that money, including what you've already spent to the engineer, including what you're committing to spend to the engineer, including your 100-year plan to improve the bridge. Imagine a road from main road from down past your place to the ferry to up here. We could actually begin to bicycle on that road again. We could have women taking strollers with their children going on that road safely again. And instead, you want to drive this Pine Lake through and do whatever you want, suspending, you know, any rules of democracy or whatever, and just go ahead and do it. It sounds like something, you know.
Would you like me to answer or? was
Yeah,
this
go ahead,
just- okay.
go ahead.
So with regards to the width of Main Road as it is from Mount Pleasant, since you're stating where I live, all the way to the ferry, it is not wide enough to put a proper sidewalk all the way down. We
It
would
can
have
be
to-
though.
Well,
You have the
from-
right of way. I can bring
Excuse
my,
me, may I?
okay, go ahead. I'm just trying to help you.
I think I'm doing well, but thank
No,
you.
I don't think so.
All right.
I think you're
Shall we
selectively
end
listening.
this here?
Okay.
What's that? I'm
Well,
sorry.
you don't seem to be interested in my answer.
No, I'm just telling you, it's a sidewalk, the
I
right of
understand you're
eminent
telling me, is
domain
this a
belongs
question
to
and
the
answer
town.
period?
You're allowed to
All
take
right.
that space from those
Thank you very
properties.
much, Mr. Benz. Thank you. You're not interested in my answer.
No, well, you're lying so far.
I'm not lying, so please, I'm done. Thank you.
Well, you remind me of a fellow named Ed Pravo who used to be mayor
Excuse me.
in Hudson. Wonder what happened to Ed.
Thank you very much. All right. Would you like to come up to the mic? Good
Good
evening.
evening. My name is Bernard Suckman. I'm on Cameron.
Mhm.
My statements have nothing to do with the agenda tonight. And over many years, I've been concerned, although I'm not in that area, from Main Road, from St. Charles, just to past St. James Church, the hydroelectric poles are so close to the road.
Mhm.
Okay, they carry the high voltage, which I think is about 25,000 volts at the top. Then they have the Bell infrastructure, they have the Videotron infrastructure, there's fiber infrastructure, and there are a number of transformers on these poles. Anytime there's an accident, it means that all of the town's emergency resources have to take care of that. My question is, why not put visibility reflectors on these items?
At
So
the
that-
intersection?
There are traffic panels that at nighttime, on
Oh,
the
I
dark
see.
and a rainy night,
Right, I see.
it's
what you're-
very hard to see those things. It's very easy to put reflection panels on all of these things so that at nighttime driving, when it's a dark rainy night, all these elements of infrastructure are going to be
Yeah,
visible.
That's a very good recommendation. Thank you.
Okay?
Yeah.
I'll mention that there are a couple, I think there's a couple of places on the same segment where you have fire hydrants protected by a large concrete block. There's no reflector on the concrete block. It's dead at night. It's invisible.
All right,
Okay?
well received.
And
Thank you.
one more thing, in the other direction, coming from just past St. James, where the hydro wires switch over to the other side,
Mhm.
if you're coming back on that way, there's a small little, I guess it's a culvert with a guardrail.
Mhm.
Just in front of the guardrail is a hydro pole protecting the guardrail. So I think something could be done, and it's not expensive.
Thank you.
All right,
Well received.
okay.
Excuse me, you do not have the mic. Thank you. Excuse me, no. Excuse me, no. This is not how this works. You were invited to the microphone. I'm sorry, this is not going to work. Thank you. If you can't follow the rules, we will ask you to leave the room. Bob, please. Excuse me. Excuse me. Order, please. If you can't follow the rules, I will ask you to leave the room. I do not need a police officer. We know how to behave. Thank you. Would you like to, Ruth? Would you like to leave?
Do we need to adjourn the meeting?
We could.
I can motion to adjourn if this continues.
Shall we proceed with the agenda? Are there other questions online? No. All right. So passing on to section 3 on urban planning and environment. So item 3.1, or did you want to give an introduction, Peter? As to, no, files? No. All right. So item 3.1 on awarding of contract, the loan of personnel and remote resources. Whereas the shortage of manpower in the field of urban planning and the lack of personnel within the urban planning division, whereas the high number of permit applications and requests received by the planning division and that the assistance is necessary, whereas 4 service offers have been received for a remote resource for the preparation of the TPAC, so Town Planning Advisory Committee meetings, and whereas the lowest service offer was received by Infrastructel Inc. on June 8th of 2022 at an hourly rate of $75 per hour before taxes. Whereas a service offer was received on June 8th of 2022 for the loan of personnel for tree inspections for tree cutting permits request by Firm Solution Alternatives Environment, Inc., at an hourly rate of $55 an hour before taxes and transportation costs. And this resolution would be to approve the awarding of the contract to Infrastructel for a remote resource for the preparation of TPAC's committee's files for $75 an hour, for 75 hours, representing an expense of $5,625 before taxes, and to approve the awarding of the contract to Solutions Alternatives Environnement for the loan of personnel for the inspection of tree cutting permit applications for 250 hours, representing an expense of $13,750 before taxes and transportation, and that these expenses be charged in accordance with the budget.
Alors, aux 3 points à l'ordre du jour, c'est pour l'octroi de 2 contrats en raison de la pénurie de main-d'œuvre et le manque de personnel au département d'urbanisme. Nous proposons octroyer des contrats à 2 firmes. Une qui est Infrastructel, pour nous aider avec la préparation des CCU, des comités consultatifs d'urbanisme, qu'on appelle souvent ici TPAC, pour un maximum de 75 heures, pour un maximum de 5 625 avant taxes, ainsi que Solutions Alternatives Environnement Inc., communément connu comme SAE, pour nous aider avec l'inspection des arbres et l'octroi des permis d'abattage d'arbres, pour un maximum de 250 heures, pour une dépense maximale de 13 750 avant taxes.
Thank you, Philip. So I will need a mover and a seconder for this. So I have Darren Lugo proposing, seconded by Mark Ray. If there are any objections to this resolution, please raise your hand. I see none. This is carried unanimously. Now we're moving on to the Town Planning Advisory Committee files. So, no, sorry. One more. Okay, item 3.2, 141 Bellevue, inspection and evaluation mandate for unfinished construction. Whereas construction work has been underway for more than 7 years on the residence of 141 Rue Bellevue, and the town has received numerous complaints about the state of the premises. Whereas the residence has no exterior cladding, windows are missing, the roof is not finished, entrance steps are not finished, and that a section of the back is still open. And whereas under its urban planning bylaws, council may take any measure necessary to cease the construction, occupation, use of part of a lot, land, building, or construction derogation from municipal bylaws. This resolution would be to authorize granting a mandate to a building inspector and a certified appraiser to visit the premises in order to produce inspection and evaluation reports for the residents located at 141 Bellevue, in order to determine the appropriate recourse to ensure compliance with municipal regulations. This resolution is also to authorize a maximum expense of $5,000 plus taxes for the preparation of these 2 experts' reports, and that these expenses be charged as provided in the budget.
Alors, 3.2 à l'ordre du jour, c'est l'octroi de 2 mandats en raison du 141 rue Bellevue, une construction qui est manifestement incomplète et génère des plaintes. Nous proposons le respect de la réglementation et l'exécution de notre réglementation qui nous permet d'aller de l'avant avec amener des mesures dérogatoires afin de s'assurer que la réglementation va être respectée. On propose 2 expertises, une par un inspecteur en bâtiment et une autre par un évaluateur agréé. Et on propose une dépense maximale de 5 000 plus taxes.
Thank you, Philip. So I need a mover and a seconder for this resolution. It is proposed by Peter Mate and seconded by Reed Thompson. Anyone not in support of this resolution, please raise your hand. See no hands raised, it is carried unanimously. So I will recuse myself from the table for the following item.
Good evening, everybody. Is this on? Okay. Item 3.3 of tonight's agenda, please let the record show that Mayor Chloe Hutchison has recused herself from the conversation. We have a SPAPE new construction preliminary program for utilization of vacated land. I will turn it over to TPAC chairperson. I'll gladly turn it over to TPAC chairperson Peter Mate, Councillor Mate, because it's pretty long. So I'll let him summarize, and I guess Director General Philip Toon will do the French version. Perfect. Take it away.
So 514 Main is the property right next to the Vibri. It's a request. The proposed plan was a mixed building of 20 residential units and 1 commercial unit on the ground floor. The demolition request will have to go through the demolition committee, but the preliminary program needs to comply with the state bylaw. So TPAC studied the second go around on June 14th and was unanimous with the recommendation to refuse the SPAPE in support of the permit request. The summary of the objectives are summarized. Basically, the criteria that are not filled are to harmonize the architectural characteristic with those neighboring buildings, to prioritize neat and detailed architectural facades, to avoid large uniform walls, to prioritize durable construction techniques, to prioritize refined lighting fixtures, to landscape open areas to limit heat islands, to preserve as much of the site's existing topography. We're not done. To favor rural or country architectural character, to ensure that exterior finished materials are in harmony with the architecture and reduced to a minimum, to ensure that the landscaping contributes to enhance the quality of the rural landscape. Some of the big items that weren't met, the objective to emphasize Main Road by prioritizing prestigious new buildings of superior quality is not respected. Again, avoiding large uniform walls, prioritizing functional and refined lighting fixtures. And it goes on. I think we summarized the list at the beginning here.
Thank you, Councillor May. En français.
Alors, 3.3 à l'ordre du jour, c'est pour une demande de nouvelle construction, puis éventuellement une démolition également au 514 rue Maine. Le projet a été présenté au comité consultatif en urbanisme et a été rejeté. Les critères non remplis sont les suivants: l'harmonie des caractéristiques architecturales avec le voisinage, le traitement architectural minutieux et soigné, éviter des grands murs uniformes, privilégier des techniques de construction durable, privilégier un équipement d'éclairage sobre, des aménagements paysagers, des espaces libres pour éviter les îlots de chaleur, conserver le plus possible la topographie existante, favoriser une architecture champêtre, favoriser un revêtement qui cadre bien et qui est réduit au minimum, et privilégier un aménagement paysager qui rehausse la qualité du paysage champêtre. Alors, en raison du non-respect des critères de réglementation pour les projets architecturaux, le CCU recommande unanimement que le projet soit rejeté et nous proposons ce soir que le conseil fait pareil.
Thank you, Mr. Toon. So the proposal in front of council is for a refusal of the SPAPE request as presented. This is in line with the recommendation from TPAC. So the question tonight for council is, do we have a mover for the refusal of this SPAPE request? Reed Thompson, seconder. Peter May. Is there anybody not in favor with this refusal? Please raise your hand or be heard. I believe it's unanimous. Thank you. Please let the record show that Mayor Hutchison has returned to the chairperson's role.
Thank you, Darren. Moving on to item 3.4, 688 Main for a SPAPE for major renovations. So Peter.
So 688 Main is a screened-in porch that basically came back and was rotated 90 degrees pretty much. So TPAC looked at the proposal on June 14th and came to a majority recommendation to approve the SPAPE in support of the permit request.
Alors, au 3.4 à l'ordre du jour, c'est une demande de rénovation au 688 rue Maine. On propose d'extensionner la terrasse en arrière sur le côté de la maison plutôt. Suite à l'évaluation du CCU, du comité consultatif en urbanisme, la recommandation unanime est à la majorité est d'approuver le projet devant nous ce soir.
Thank you, Philip. I need a mover and a seconder for this project. So Darren Legault moves, seconded by Peter Mate. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. I see none. It is carried unanimously. Item 3.5, 78 Hazelwood, spate for major renovations. Peter?
So 78 Hazelwood is basically replacing, I believe, a window with a patio door and replacing another window. TPAC looked at the file on the June 14th meeting and came to a unanimous recommendation to approve the spate in support of the permit request with the following condition, that the window with the half moon be replaced with a window same style as that of the moved window that is to be aligned with the moved window. So basically, instead of the arched windows, to have the same window being replaced.
Alors, au 3.5 à l'ordre du jour, toujours un autre projet de rénovation pour le 78 rue Hazelwood. Le projet a été présenté au comité consultatif en urbanisme. Ils sont d'accord que le projet devrait aller à l'avant, ça c'est unanime, mais avec une recommandation, avec une condition que une des fenêtres, une fenêtre qui est en forme de demi-lune, soit remplacée par une fenêtre de même style que les autres fenêtres qu'on trouve et qu'elle soit alignée avec les fenêtres existantes.
Thank you. I need a mover and a seconder for this resolution. I have Reed Thompson moving, seconded by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are no hands raised. It is carried unanimously. Item 3.6, 382 Main for spate major renovation. Peter?
So 382 Main is the patio on the side of the home on the right-hand side. It's elevated. Basically, there is also the patio doors there. So this is, I think, maybe the third or so time that TPAC has reviewed it. TPAC's majority recommendation was to refuse the spate in support of the permit request, where it still doesn't fit the rural character of outdoor spaces along Main Road, and it fails to meet the objective to preserve the architecture of the buildings and the rural character of outdoor spaces along Main Road. And that's it.
Alors, au 3.6 à l'ordre du jour, une demande de rénovation 382 rue Main. Le projet a été présenté au CCU. La recommandation du CCU est de rejeter, majoritairement, et de rejeter la demande en raison qu'on ne respecte pas les qualités champêtres de voisinage et du projet qui a été présenté.
So may I have a mover and a seconder for this? So Peter Mate move, seconded by Mark Gray, to refuse the spate request on this project. Item 3.7, 33 Wharfs. Oh. Are there anyone in objection to this resolution? Please raise your hand. Nope, there are none. It is unanimous. Thank you, Darren. Item 3.7, 33 Wharf, spate major renovation.
So 33 Wharf is the daycare. So this is for an extension of their patio at the front of the building. TPAC reviewed it and was unanimous in the recommendation to approve the spate in support of the permit request.
OK, alors 3.7 à l'ordre du jour, 33 rue Wharf. C'est le CPE qui se trouve sur la rue Wharf. Une demande de rénovation. Précisément, ce serait d'élargir le deck qu'on trouve en avant de la bâtisse. Le CCU a évalué le projet et ils sont unanimes que le projet devrait être approuvé.
Thank you. May I have a mover and a seconder for this resolution? So Peter Mate and seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 3.8, 82 Cedar, spate major renovation.
So 82 Cedar is basically a window replacement. TPAC reviewed it and was unanimous in the recommendation to approve the spate in support of the permit request.
3.8 à l'ordre du jour pour le 82 rue Cedar. Toujours une demande de rénovation. Le projet a été présenté au CCU. C'est largement pour la réfection de nouvelles fenêtres pour remplacer les anciennes. C'est la recommandation unanime du CCU que le projet devrait être approuvé.
May I have a mover and a seconder for this resolution? Mark Gray moves, seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 3.9, awarding. So that ends basically the files that were reviewed by TPAC this month. Thank you very much. We're also to let, I guess, the community know we're looking for new members. So please submit your interest if you're interested. So item 3.9, awarding of contract to Habitat Nature, planning for sustainable development of the territories. This is what I was mentioning in my opening report. Whereas the town wishes to promote sustainable development on its territory, considering the professional services offer of support for the town for sustainable development planning in its territory received by Habitat Nature in June of 2022 in the amount of $66,240 plus taxes. Whereas the service offer aims to quantify the ecological contribution of the natural environment located on 5 targeted sites and to develop scenarios and indicators of ecological and social and economic impact in order to assess the impact of different modes of development and of development. Whereas the bylaw 708 on contract management authorizes the awarding of a professional services contract by mutual agreement for an expense greater than $25,000, but less than the threshold decreed by the minister. And whereas the finance department has validated the allocation of the expenditure and to award, this resolution would be to award the contract of professional services for support for the town for sustainable development planning on its territory to Habitat for the amount mentioned above.
Alors, 3.9 à l'ordre du jour, c'est l'octroi d'un contrat en faveur de la compagnie Habitat Nature pour une planification axée sur le développement durable. Un offre de service a été reçu du dit Habitat Nature en juin 2022. Il nous propose de nous accompagner dans le développement d'un plan de développement durable sur notre territoire, précisément de nous aider à élaborer des plans pour 5 sites qui ont été ciblés et élaborer des scénarios indicateurs d'impact écologique généralement et pour les 5 sites ciblés. On nous propose un mandat qui serait d'une valeur de 66 240 $ avant taxe. Et on demande au conseil d'approuver le projet.
Merci. So I need a mover and a seconder for this proposal, for this resolution. So Peter Mate proposes, seconded by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are no hands up. It is carried unanimously. Item 3.10, tabling of a monthly report for permits that were issued in May of 2022. So members of council take note of the tabling of the monthly report for permits issued by the Urban Planning Department.
Alors, au 3.10, un dépôt d'un rapport mensuel des permis émis pendant le mois de mai.
Thank you. Moving on to section 4 for administration and finance, item 4.1, approval of disbursements for June of 2022, whereas council has examined the disbursements made and to be made for accounts payable as of June 23rd of this year. This resolution is to approve the following disbursements as of that date. Checks for the amount of $924,528.13, canceled checks in the amount of $201,600, direct debit for $94,268.80. There are no canceled direct debit charges, for a subtotal of payments of $817,196.93. There were 2 payrolls during this period. Payroll number 12 for $127,540.66. Payroll number 13 for $121,422.93. For a total of accounts paid for the month of June up to the June 23rd date for $1,066,160.52.
Okay, 4 points à l'ordre du jour, c'est les payables du mois en allant jusqu'au 23 juin 2022. Nous avons dépensé en chèques 924 528 et 13 sous. Les chèques annulés de 201 600 $. Des débits directs qui ont été reçus, qui ont été payés en 94 268 $ et 80 sous. Pays numéro 12 pour un montant de 127 540 et 66 sous. La pays numéro 13, 121 422 et 93 sous pour un total du mois pour 1 066 160 $ et 52 sous.
Thank you. So I will need a mover and a seconder for this resolution. Looking to my left, Mark Gray and Reed Thompson seconding. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. I see no hands raised. It is carried unanimously. Item 4.2, allocation of working capital to pay for the backhoe identified as JD 401. Considering the resolution from September of 2021 for approving the acquisition of a John Deere backhoe identified as JD 401, whereas the said backhoe was delivered in May of 2022, whereas the funds are available in the working capital, whereas no bond financing is anticipated until late of 2023 or 2024. This resolution is to appropriate the amount of $187,425 from the working capital to finance the acquisition of the John Deere backhoe, and that the reimbursement be made over a period of 5 years.
Et 4.2 à l'ordre du jour, l'affectation du fonds de roulement pour payer une rétrocaveuse. Alors, la résolution 2021-09-249 a approuvé l'acquisition d'une rétrocaveuse John Deere qu'on identifie comme étant le JD 401. On a reçu la dite rétrocaveuse en mai 2022. Les fonds sont disponibles dans le fonds de roulement et que, puisqu'on ne prévoit pas des nouveaux prêts avant 2023, même peut-être 2024, qui iraient en obligation, nous proposons que le 187 425 $ pour l'achat soit payé par le fonds de roulement et remboursé sur une période de 5 ans.
Thank you, Philip. So I need a mover and a seconder. So Darren Legault moves and seconded by Peter Mate. Anyone not in support of this resolution, please raise your hand. Doug Smith raises his hand. So it is moved by majority. Item 4.3. Doug, did you want to say something? No. Item 4.3, tabling treasurer's statement of delinquent accounts for non-payment of taxes. So in compliance with the Cities and Towns Act, members of council take note of the tabling of the treasurer's statement provided for in section 511, indicating the immovables on which the taxes imposed have not been paid in whole or in part. Is this for up until last year?
It'll include whatever is past due this year as well.
Okay. Very good. En français.
C'est vrai. Alors, au 4.3 à l'ordre du jour, c'est le dépôt du rapport des comptes qui sont en souffrance. Alors, c'est un simple dépôt, mais ça indique que les comptes qui sont en souffrance depuis les 3 dernières années, incluant cette année.
D'accord. Moving on to section 5 for town clerk. So item 5.1, delegation of powers for inspection under the RCI 2022-96 of the CMM, so the Communauté Métropolitaine de Montréal. Whereas the interim control bylaw 2022-96 concerning natural environments adopted by the Communauté Métropolitaine de Montréal on April 28th of 2022. Whereas section 5.2 of this bylaw, by which the municipal officers or official who is responsible for issuing permits and certificates within the meaning of sections 119 and 236 of the Act respecting land use planning and development, is the official designated by the community council to act as local metropolitan inspector responsible for the application of the bylaw on interim controls. So the city must consent to such designation, and that the town of Hudson, so this resolution is for the town of Hudson to consent to its licensing officials or officers acting as the local metropolitan inspector as provided for in the section on the community interim controls bylaw and exercising powers and duties listed in section 5.7 of the bylaw. And that the town of Hudson informs the Communauté Métropolitaine de Montréal that the following persons are acting as local metropolitan inspectors on its territory. So one would be community planning director, second urban planning division head, urban planning technician, urban planning inspector, inspection agent, environment technician, and environment inspector.
5.1 à l'ordre du jour, Alors, délégation de pouvoir d'inspection dans le cadre du RCI de la CMM, de la Communauté métropolitaine de Montréal. Alors, puisque la CMM a lancé un nouveau RCI cette année, et pour s'assurer que l'inspection se fait en prévision du cadre législatif du dit RCI, la CMM demande aux municipalités de nommer leurs propres inspecteurs pour leur RCI. Alors, la Ville d'Hudson propose que les employés suivants soient nommés à titre d'inspecteurs pour la RCI de la CMM. Bref, c'est le département d'urbanisme, mais je vais les énumérer. Directeur de la planification communautaire, chef de division à l'urbanisme, technicien en urbanisme, inspecteur en urbanisme, agent d'inspection, technicien en environnement et inspecteur en environnement.
Thank you. So I will need a mover and a seconder for this resolution. Darren Legault moving, seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. I see no hands raised. It is carried unanimously. Item 5.2, amendment to resolution R 2022-04-109 on the financial support to the Hudson Creative Hub. So considering the resolution that was passed in April of this year by which Council granted financial contributions to associations and organizations, whereas the said resolution was awarded a contribution of $8,075 to Hudson Arts and Culture Center, which organization registered under a different name, Hudson Creative Hub, whereas the Canada Non-for-Profit Corporations Act, an organization must declare its status as a soliciting corporation. This resolution is to acknowledge the organization's name change and to modify the resolution that was passed in April in order to replace the identification of the organization from Hudson Arts and Culture Center to Hudson Creative Hub, and to amend this resolution, and that 50% of the contribution allocated to Centre Créatif Hudson will be withheld until the organization proves that it has the status of a soliciting corporation under the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act.
5.2 à l'ordre du jour, c'est modification de la résolution adoptée préalablement, la résolution 2022-04-109, une contribution financière au Centre créatif Hudson. Alors, le nom a changé, donc au lieu d'être Hudson Arts and Culture Center, nous changeons le nom du don en faveur de l'organisme qui dorénavant s'appelle Centre créatif Hudson, et également nous exigeons qu'il soit identifié selon la loi canadienne sur les organisations à but non lucratif pour des raisons fiscales, et que nous retenons le 50% du don le temps que ça prend pour que les changements soient en vigueur.
Thank you, Philip. So I need a mover and a seconder for this resolution. Reed Thompson, seconded by Darren Legault. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. I see none. It is carried unanimously. Item 5.3. Did I forget to give you the microphone for item 5? No, not yet. Okay. Item 5.3, amendment to the Disasters Victim Service Agreement with the Red Cross. So whereas the town and Canadian Red Cross Society have an agreement for disaster services which expires next October, and whereas in order to ensure the protection of persons and property against disasters in accordance with the civil security plan and emergency measures of the town of Hudson, the maintenance of such service agreement is a priority for emergency operations and public security. And whereas the Canadian Red Cross Society proposes to amend the current agreement in order to extend its period of validity for a period of 12 months from its expiry date. And whereas section 7.4 of the agreement provides that it may be amended by the mutual written consent of the parties, this resolution is to authorize town clerk to sign for and on behalf of the town the amendment number 1 to the service agreement for disasters victims between the town and the Canadian Red Cross Society, which amendment has the effect of postponing the end of the agreement and to authorize the modification affecting the payment of the annual contribution at the modified rate of 18 cents per resident. And this is from 17 cents. So we're increasing by 1 cent per resident. And that the expense be financed in accordance with the budget.
Et 5.3 à l'ordre du jour, c'est un amendement à l'entente de la Ville avec la Croix-Rouge. l'entente 2019-12. Alors, deux items dans la résolution. Un, c'est d'extensionner l'entente pour une période de 12 mois. L'entente est prévue de terminer ce mois d'octobre. Alors, pour un autre 12 mois par la suite. Et augmenter le tarif par individu. Alors, en ce moment, nous payons 17 cents par résident de la ville d'Hudson. Le tarif sera augmenté à 18 cents par résident de la ville d'Hudson.
Thank you, Philip. So I will need a proposer and a seconder. So Peter Mate proposes, seconded by Darren Legault. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. I see no hands raised. It is carried unanimously.
Mrs. Mayor, can I just add on to that?
Please.
If anybody's ever had to use the services of the Red Cross, it's a phenomenal organization. We had the unfortunate opportunity of floods of 2017 of using their services, and they really make you feel calm and taken care of. So this is definitely something that's important for us to maintain. So thank you.
They have a lot of experience, obviously, and it's nice to have them when we need them. All right, item 5.4, tabling of minutes of correction for resolution R 2022-03-84. So in accordance with section 92.1 of the Cities and Towns Act, the town clerk is tabling the minutes of correction concerning resolution that I just read the number to. So this resolution in March. Remind me, Philip, what we were correcting. It was just an item on the finance.
Right, so it's to correct an error that was slipped through for identifying the project name. We'd put it down as HY 1904. It's in fact HY 2004.
Thank you. All right, great. So en français. Merci.
Alors, à 5.4 à l'ordre du jour, c'est le dépôt d'un procès verbal de correction de la part de la greffière. Une résolution antérieure a nommé un projet de capital, une dépense de capital qui a été adopté par la résolution de cette année, au mois de mars, la résolution 84. On a mal identifié le projet d'investissement comme étant HY 1904. On remplace avec le bon nom le bon titre qui serait le HY 2004.
Merci beaucoup. So moving on to section 6 on human resources, item 6.1, hiring of the urban planning department for environment technician function 601. Whereas function 601, environment technician for the urban planning division, has been vacant since March 10th of 2022. Whereas for the proper functioning of the urban planning division, it is necessary that the position be filled. Whereas a posting took place as prescribed in Article 9 of the collective agreement and ended on June 12th of 2022. Whereas the selection process, assessment, and interview of applications made in collaboration with the Human Resources Service and managers of both service, the resolution that is proposed is to hire Ms. Melinda Sue Marquis as an environment technician function 601 of the urban planning department, and that the hiring be effective as of July 11th, 2022, and the hiring be subject to a probationary period corresponding to the first 6 months of work, with the possibility of extending it by 3 additional months as prescribed in the collective agreement, and that this expense be allocated in accordance to the planned budget.
Okay, c'est ce point à l'ordre du jour, c'est pour l'embauche d'une nouvelle technicienne en environnement. Ce serait la fonction 601. Le poste est vacant depuis le 10 mars. Le poste a été affiché au terme de la convention collective. Après une recherche pour un nouvel employé, nous proposons l'embaucher Madame Melinda Marquis avec une date effective d'embauche le 11 juillet de cette année. Il y aurait une période de probation de 6 mois qui peut être extensionnée de 3 mois au terme de la convention.
Thank you. So we can see that with the short-handed staffing, that also it's difficult to find qualified workers at this time. So it's taken 4 months to actually fill this position, and this is an ongoing challenge that we're running into as we're filling positions. So I will need a mover and a seconder, Darren Legault, and seconded by Mark Ray. Who's first? I'm sorry. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none, so it is carried unanimously. Welcome, Melinda Sue Marquis, to our family, and we're happy to have you. Moving on to item 6.2, hiring for public works, maintenance journeyman function 207. Whereas this function or this position has been vacant since April 11th of 2022, and whereas the proper functioning of the department, it is necessary that this position be filled. Whereas the posting took place as prescribed in Article 9 of the collective agreement and ended on June 12th. Whereas the selection process and assessment and interview of applications made in collaboration with Human Resources Services, the foreman and department director. This resolution would be to hire Ms. Laurie Gauthier as a maintenance journeyman function 207 for the Public Works Department, and that this hiring be effective as of July 11th. And as with the previous resolution, the hiring be subject to a probationary period corresponding to the first 6 months of work, with the possibility of extending it by 3 months as prescribed in the collective agreement, and that the town may terminate employment for any reason with 1 week's notice, and that this expense be allocated in accordance with the planned budget.
OK. Alors, au 6.2 à l'ordre du jour, une autre embauche, cette fois-ci, journalier à l'entretien, la fonction 207. Alors, le poste est vacant depuis le 11 avril. Une échange a eu lieu au terme de la convention collective. Après les entrevues pour les candidats, nous proposons à l'embauche de Laurie Gauthier au poste avec une date d'effectif d'emploi débutant le 11 juillet de cette année, avec les mêmes termes que précédemment, 6 mois de probation avec possibilité d'extension de 3 mois.
Merci. I will need a mover and a seconder. Darren Legault moving, seconded by Reed Thompson. He has his hand up like way before I turn my head, just so you know. All right, are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. I see none. It is carried unanimously. Donc, bienvenue. Welcome, Laurie Gauthier, to the team. All right, moving to item 6.3, administrative assistant for the fire department. This is for a permanent position. Considering the resolution adopted in December of last year, creating an administrative assistance position in the public safety department. This is for a period of 6 months at 8 hours a week, or it was. The one in December was for 6 months at 8 hours, whereas the proper functioning of the public safety department, this position should be on a permanent basis at 16 hours a week. And considering that discussions have taken place between the Director of Public Security, the Human Resources Department, and the Director General regarding the needs and the hours assigned thereto. This resolution would be to grant permanency to the position of administrative assistant, a part-time position of 16 hours a week in the Hudson Public Safety Department, and that this permanence come into effect as of this date, and that this expense be allocated in accordance with the planned budget.
So, 6.3 à l'ordre du jour, ça serait la continuation d'une embauche. Alors, ce serait pour une adjointe administrative au service incendie. En décembre de l'année passée, la résolution 2021-12-310, nous avons créé un poste pour une durée de 6 mois en raison de 8 heures par semaine. Après évaluation, il a été déterminé que le poste devrait être doublé à 2 jours par semaine, donc 16 heures par semaine, et que ça devient permanent. Alors, nous proposons la permanence à la fonction 2 jours par semaine, 16 heures par semaine. La même employée, bien sûr, continue dans le poste.
Thank you. So in French, I know what it is, but this is essentially to respond or to make sure that we have la force de frappe. In English, it is strike force. Strike force. So it is a minimum requirement of how many people, how many firefighters show up to a fire within a given time. And I forget, it's 15 minutes, maybe. You would be able to explain better.
It depends on the type of fire. Ça
Yeah.
dépend du type de l'appel qui est fait. Mais oui, ça va nous aider à respecter notre force de frappe qui est en ce moment une dizaine de personnes. Le mois passé, on avait demandé si on ne pourrait pas baisser notre
Okay,
conseil
so you had
peut-être à
read
8
this.
personnes.
Right, right. So this is a requirement again from the ministerial level, and it has been reviewed at the regional level. We're looking to go from 10 to 8, but it is increasingly difficult to ensure that we have this strike force at all time. Just because most people who are volunteer for the fire service work outside of Hudson, and for them to come and be available on time, this was actually a request to make sure that we meet our obligation, and we will make sure to keep this person well busy with administrative tasks, and that they're not just twiddling their thumbs. Correct. All right, so I need a mover and a seconder, Darren Legault, and seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Recreation. So here's your section, Reed. Reed will give an introduction that I was supposed to mention for this play in the park. So Shakespeare by the Lake has a program this year, and we have words of the organizers that Reed will read for us.
Come and soak up the beautiful atmosphere at the amphitheater in Jack Layton Park. With the lake as your backdrop, sit on the stones, bring a chair, and watch one of Shakespeare's best comedies, The Merry Wives of Windsor, unfold delightfully before you, brought to life by the very talented Hudson Players Club director, Aaron George, and a whole slew of Hudson and St. Lazare residents who will make your evening special. Come early. There is no admission, but we do ask for a free will donation per person of $10. And we remind you of the Hudson parking restrictions at Jack Layton Park. That means that unless you have a permit, you could face a fine of $80. If you do not have a permit, please park at the snow dump. The shows are all at 7 p.m. on the following dates in July. Friday, July 15th, Saturday, July 16th, Sunday, July 17th, Thursday, July 21st, Friday, July 22nd, Saturday, July 23rd, and Sunday, July 24th. Again, all at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Reed. Is it really $80?
We'll have to check. It's less than that, but with court fees, they might have gone up to.
Okay, for some reason I had it somewhere around 50 with, I think there's, so we'll look at it.
I'm
Thank
just
you,
reading
Reed.
what we're doing.
But thank you, Reed. That's very helpful. So yes, lots happening. He does.
Don't shoot the messenger.
He's just the
Yeah.
perfect person for this. So thank you. I believe that in the following section, so there were no items or resolutions for this section on culture, tourism, and recreation. Public Works, there are none either. For public safety, there are none this evening. And now we are on to section 10 for bylaws. So item 10.1 is for bylaw 756-2022 to provide for a loan in the amount of $150,000 and an expenditure of $150,000 for the replacement of the membrane at the Whitlock West wastewater treatment plant. So this is for the notice of motion and tabling of the draft. So I need a counselor to give notice. So this would be Mark Gray gives notice of motion that he would move or cause to be moved at a subsequent session of the council, the adoption of bylaw 756-2022 to provide for a loan in the amount of $150,000 and an expenditure of $150,000 for the replacement of the membrane of the Whitlock West wastewater treatment plant and tables, the draft bylaw. And this bylaw is to authorize the loan to finance the replacement of the membrane at this plant. The loan is for a term of 15 years for the sector concerned, which are the units serviced by the said aqueduct network.
I'll just correct that it's not an aqueduct network, it's actually a sewer network.
Thank you. Yes, good.
Alors, 10 points à l'ordre du jour, c'est un avis de motion pour, puis dépôt de projet pour le règlement 756-2022 qui va décréter une dépense de 150 000 $, et un emprunt de 150 000 $ pour le remplacement de la membrane de la station d'eau usée dans le secteur de Whitlock West. Alors, le conseiller Mark Gray donne avis que à la prochaine assemblée, nous allons déposer, du moins dans une assemblée ultérieure, du moins, on va déposer un projet final pour la dépense pour aller jusqu'à 150 000 qui serait amorti sur 15 ans et serait remboursé par les résidents du dit secteur Whitlockers.
Thank you. So moving on to the next item, item 10.2. This is loan bylaw 755-2022, authorizing a loan of $1,893,400 for work improvement of Main Road from Quarry Point to Bellevue. This is for a notice of motion and tabling of the draft. So I will also need a counselor to give a notice of motion. So Peter Mate gives notice of motion that he would move or cause to be moved at a subsequent session of the council, the adoption of loan bylaw 755-2022, authorizing a loan of $1,893,400 for work improvement of Main Road from Quarry Point to Bellevue and tables the draft bylaw. The purpose of this bylaw is to authorize a loan in the amount said in order to proceed for the road repairs, and that it will be over a 15-year period, and his reimbursement shall be borne by building owners throughout the whole town's territory.
Et 10.2 à l'ordre du jour, un autre avis de motion pour dépôt de projet pour un règlement d'emprunt, le règlement d'emprunt 750-2022. Ici, ce serait pour autoriser des travaux de réfection de la rue Main, de la rue Quarry Point jusqu'à la rue Bellevue, pour un montant de 1 893 400 $. Nous proposons un amortissement remboursé sur 15 ans et que une nouvelle taxe soit montée, qui serait imputable à tous les résidences de la ville de Tignes.
Thank you. So section 11 on new business. Anyone have anything they want to bring to the table? No. Second question period. Look, I didn't miss this one. So if you have any questions, please come to the mic and we will alternate between online and in the room. We'll start with you, sir.
Be replaced. What else? I noticed in the draft bylaw that the payback period was going to be 10 years. The current ones have lasted 10 years, and now they no longer meet the manufacturer specifications according to what you've written in bylaws. And so maybe they should be amortized the next time for another 10 years.
Rather than 15? Is that what you mean? Rather than
Yeah.
15? So it is my understanding that this membrane has come to its end of life and that in its first part of its life, it wasn't necessarily
Well cared
maintained.
for.
Exactly. So there has been faster decay or whatever use, you know. than it has
Excuse me, there's another question. The membranes are sort of like polluted rather than something's been operated badly and they're ruptured and some fail.
Well, I think they get rinsed on a regular basis, but obviously they have more wear and tear like anything else if you don't
I
look
mean,
after
there can
them.
always be an accident at the usine because people don't know what they're doing, or simply they plug up and gum
I
up
wouldn't
over
go
time.
as far as saying that you asked me, you know.
But the
is
council
that-
knows.
yeah. Exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Questions online? There's one question. Yeah.
Alors, en ligne, online, Carol Ann Mills, you have the floor.
Hi, Carol.
Good evening. Thanks so much for taking my question. Thanks for an entertaining meeting this evening. This is more a comment than a question. We had gone for a walk after 5 o'clock on Sandy Beach on Saturday. That was pretty crowded. It was about 6 p.m. When we came out of the Sandy Beach Trail to Royal View, the security guys were there. They were in their car. One of them had just been at the beach and had returned to the car. There were a number of parked cars on the, I won't attempt left, right, east, west, on the beach side of Royal View. When we asked the security personnel if they were allowed to park there, they said that the signage was showing arrows in different directions and that these cars were in fact legally parked between the arrows. We went over and had a look just out of sheer curiosity, and what we found was a no parking sign that had been thrown into the bush on the opposite side of the road. So this doesn't, I'm just looking at the expressions. Okay, this comes to no one as a surprise, but perhaps our security people need
No,
schematic.
we've had to go back several times and set right a few of the signs in that area. Unfortunately, there has been some vandalism around town with regards to graffiti, but signage as well in terms of just taking it down. So it's unfortunate, but thank you. That's helpful. And I guess we will be making sure that we go and take a look at all the parking signs as well, and not just the signs that are at the entrance of the different entrances. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, please come to the mic.
Again, my name is Bernard Suckman on Cameron. Just a very quick, let's say, observation. Coming down Cameron, approaching Fairhaven, there's a pole with an amber light that has not been working for months and months and months. I just wondered if the town has any intention of getting this to work.
And
again.
it's hidden by a few branches too, is it
I
not?
see it every
Yeah.
time I come down the
Do
hill.
you? Yeah.
Yeah, there used
It's a
to be
good
one at the
question.
top of Cameron, but that was removed.
I'm going to let our Director General answer because you made a sound, but no.
We've since retired it. Signage with those red arrow signs are much more effective.
Okay,
And that's what we would be doing.
so does that accurately answer your question? It
really
has
depends
been
on when you
retired.
see, I mean, the flashing light gets your attention and a static sign, maybe.
Mhm. There's been a lot of comments and questions from a variety of residents asking that we address speeding throughout the town. So the cross entrances, Cameron included, are some of the areas where I'd say on a monthly basis, we probably get 5 emails. I know I do. I'm sure that others get others, but it's a recurring issue that we really need to address.
Many years, I've been on Cameron for 37 years, so many years ago, and there was actually a sign at the top of the hill that was kind of a warning about a hill. And I imagine that was for trucks, but that disappeared
That's
with
true.
the new buildings, the new housing that was
Mm.
put on that side of the road. There weren't any houses at that time.
Do you find that the speed radars help in any way to sort of sensitize people?
I, not so much going down the hill, going up the hill, people naturally step on the gas. And especially with the trucks, there's quite a bit of noise that comes up,
Mm.
but they have to do that to get up the hill.
Mm.
But there's often some smaller cars that are really whizzing past.
Mm.
I'm at 186, it's just at the crest.
Mm.
So yes, there's a lot of cars that are going very, very fast. But
Everyone seems to bring a different part of the piece of the solution. You're speaking about
I don't have a
signs. There's
solution for
some that
that.
are speaking of reducing widths and
yeah, I have no solution
Speed
or
bumps,
recommendation
yeah.
because you have to go up the hill.
Yeah.
And you have to step on the gas or you don't go up the hill.
all right. All right. Well, thank you. Helpful. Is there someone online? No one? Helen?
Helen Kuganski, Quarry Point. First of all, I'd like to thank council for moving ahead to repair a large section of Main Road, much needed. You're going to make this road much more secure for all our citizens. It's been scaring the shit out of me watching little kids on
Thank you,
bicycles.
Helen. Well, it was your
it's
council who
been-
got it on tracks.
Anyway, so
we're just
thank you
doing-
very much for at least going forward on that. It was supposed to have been done in, I think it was 2020, and then it got stopped with COVID and everything. So you're moving ahead, at least on a section of that. Thank you. So that's a positive step forward. I have a question for Doug Smith. Why did you vote against?
So Helen, not to be a stickler, but it has to come here and then.
Oh, okay,
I'll
sorry.
divert.
Sorry. I
It's all
apologize.
right.
I forgot already.
No, no,
How
it's
I'm
okay.
supposed to behave.
It's just,
So-
otherwise it's hard for me to keep order.
No,
as you
no
know.
problem, no
Yeah.
problem. So I just wanted to know.
Just say,
why-
can I ask Doug Smith
Why
a
did
question? It's that silly.
Councillor Doug Smith
Yeah.
vote against the John Deere
Sure.
resolution for the payment?
Doug, are you comfortable? Would you like to answer?
Helen, I don't think we're far enough into our mandate to be in favor of buying $200,000 pieces of equipment, given what some of us have observed in how we look after the equipment we currently have. So I'm not in favor of that until we have a more defined maintenance program and some assurances that some of the ways we use the equipment will be perhaps dare I say, a little more respectful.
And if I may add, this expense was actually approved by previous council, and this was simply just a different allocation of funds, right? So the decision to purchase this piece of equipment was done before we arrived, but we've had that conversation and we take it very seriously, and hopefully we will, excuse me.
And am I allowed one more question or?
You wanted to
I
put
just
something
would
else?
like to add a piece to that. I still am of the belief that whatever might have been started by a previous council, we're not actually obligated to continue with, and that's why
I think that
Sorry?
Philip Toon would like to add a piece to that.
We'd already purchased it. It was in
Well, I
our
under-
garage.
I understand that. So it's, I'll stop.
Okay,
Thank you. Yes, you may ask another question.
okay, so just, I'm happy also to see that you're concerned with sustainable development and taking measures to make certain that as we go forward, whatever we decide to do is done sustainably. But I have a question. There were quite a large number of trees that were taken down to build a residence on Royal View at the Sandy Beach. I see that there's another project going to be going forward also. And I wondered how were the large amount of trees that were taken down, what kind of compensation did the town and our community get in order to replace what was lost? Is there a program in place? Did we get money? Did we get trees that are going to be planted elsewhere? What measures have
So
been
at this
taken?
time, the rules are the same that they were last term. We're looking to do better. So that is part of the RCI #1, the one on environment, where we're looking at ensuring that we can replace this canopy or put in deterrents to doing this kind of action. After that, I think that it is one of the recommendations probably that will be coming out of either the CWG or the Environment Committee. But again, there's certain lots one-on-one that gets harder to be extremely aggressive on them. I think that will have more impact on the larger projects and the larger subdivisions. And that's why I was targeting those bigger properties that are still left to be divided. There is some measure now, I think, for when we cut a tree, there has to be some money put down and some replacement. Can you remind me what that
It's
is?
$200, but it depends on the size of the lot. You're expected to have so many trees per dimension. So if you cut down a tree and you're still above the minimum requirement,
Right.
there's no money.
So these were some of the measures that were put in last term, as you remember, right? So we're looking to continually increase these, but keep them within what is acceptable norm in the province and be just a little bit, more aggressive with regards to.
But specifically for that project where there was, as I said, a huge amount of large old pine trees that were taken down, was what specifically was given in return for that loss?
For that, again, I believe it was a permit that went through last term, as far as I know. Maybe I'm wrong, but what we would like to bring it to is that remarkable trees have a very special price tag on them, and that it would be definitely a deterrent, and there would be a buffer zone to these trees, and that it's sort of like a heritage building. And then, those measures can be more remarkable, more stringent than what is presently permissible. in the law.
So did we get anything for that?
Well, I would guess in
I
accordance
don't know.
to.
Do
what
we get
that was.
$200 for all that?
That is where the bylaws are at this point, and this is what I'm trying to improve. We can only get there in the speed that we can.
There will be, there's another house that's going to be coming up soon.
Correct.
Is there any protection for that?
Are you
area?
ready to buy the piece of property? I mean, it's to that level of, unfortunately, we are locking into the bigger areas. Those are the ones with the biggest impact. The ones one-on-one, we have some measures in place. We will look to make those better, but there's as soon as they can fit a house within setbacks, if those trees haven't been set as immovables, as long as they can show that it's a footprint with its buffer zone, they can cut anything they want. But that's the bylaw as it's been set. And that's the way that it's been set right up until now. We continue to want to improve those, but we did not get money in return for cutting those trees except for the $200 if there's less than a certain amount on the property. right? I forget what it is. It's density of trees or it's a number of trees.
Yeah, it's number of trees per density of the
Okay.
lot.
So Helen, we continue to improve it, but we have not put a freeze on tree cutting, right?
No, I did, I just wanted, I was just,
Yeah.
I'd been asked that question and I didn't have the answer and now thank you.
I don't
very
have
much.
a better answer for
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
but we are working on it. There's a few tools that are in our pocket that, we will certainly be putting into
Okay,
place.
thank you very much.
You're
Thank you for continuing your efforts.
Thank you. More questions online? Yeah, please.
Louise Craig, you have the floor.
Hi, Louise.
Hi, Chloe. I have a question regarding the study that we're paying for. There's going to be 5 areas that are going to be studied. Which are those areas?
So those are areas that I put a red circle on the map when I was meeting with Habitat, and those could be moved at any point. So it's not specific to that list. I was just thinking that that's a good number. The obvious ones are the big ones that we know that are already at risk or under pressure of development. And, if I were to name zones, you and I might know what those are, but other people might not know. Certainly council has said they want to see that list and maybe we can refine that list or move some of the circles around. Another point that came in my exchange with Habitat is, should we be looking at the value of, there's a second RCI that's come into play at the CMM level with regards to converting golf courses into natural areas. So it's called the reconversion. And that might be something that is interesting to look at just in terms of what is the value, so that if we want to perhaps densify the development of a presently undeveloped area, but save another so that the ecology is better across the land, that might be a good strategy. So if I were to give you a list today, I know it's going to end up all over social media and basically hinder our work. So I hope you don't mind, but we need some working room. I think that you and I can, you have a good guess on what those 5 might be, but know that there's also room for those to move around and they're not finalized.
So this would be for the purpose of expropriation?
No, not at all. It's actually to understand where should residential density go.
Could it be
Let's say,
seen
and
as
I'll
this
give you just,
size?
this is the same example that I give, I think I gave someone today. There is a developer that is looking to densify an area that right now has perhaps 100 units that is permitted. Would it be better to add density to that area rather than have same density in another area? Is it better to increase one and lower in the other for the same amount of doors across the territory? And that is what this type of study will be able to say to us is, you're better off preserving this part of town, but this one has less value ecologically.
I'm always concerned about legal costs. So could this be seen as the sky's expropriation?
Yeah, that's always, I think, in the back of our mind, but I can assure you that this is not where I expect that this will be headed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. No more questions? Yes, please.
Brian Corrigan from the Como area. Good that you're doing the paving job. 1.8 million, whatever. That's great being elected in that area. My question is speculation, best case, worst case scenario, be living on Main Road. Have any idea when this work might get started?
Philip, do you have any precisions?
If all the stars line up, it'll be the fall, and otherwise it'll be in the spring. It'll be late spring if it's in the spring, because you don't want to do it too soon after the spring thaw. So we're really hoping for the fall.
And how long would that take in the sense of stopping the road, blocking the road? We've already gone through all this many times to do all this work.
I don't have the timeline right now. I'll have to get back to you. I'll probably know by next month.
You could reach out to the town either through me or through the information, and we should be able to get you that information. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'd like that information too.
You don't have to be sad. All right. Are there any other questions? Online? No? All right. So the last, is it a resolution? It is adjournment of meeting. It is a resolution. So I will need a mover and a seconder to close. So Reed Thompson, seconded by Peter Mead. That the
Get on it,
meeting be adjourned at 9:19 PM. And are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. You could be sitting. Thank you. All right. So it is carried unanimously, and thank you very much for this evening.